as we leave the Black Butte lookout area. It's a big expansive area with its own trail system, and I'm particularly impressed by the Cupola Viewpoint, where you get to stand in one spot and see 9 different mountains, their elevations with placards. I think that is the piece de resistance of this hike. See the sign for it here, Cupola Lookout. That is not what I'm talking about straight ahead, that's a different thing. Cupola Lookout's to our right. It's wooden and not enclosed. I'm now heading back from whence I came on Black Butte Trail, descending this incredible scenic trail. Today is June 7, 2022. So there's 2 ways to do this trail. You can start at the lower or the upper. I started at the lower. Makes it 9.8 miles and 3,400 feet elevation gain. You heard that right, 3,400. Glad I'm going down. That was exhausting. If you start at the upper, you cut it in over half on both those metrics. It's 3.8 instead of 9.8, and it's 1,600 instead of 3,400. So the upper trailhead is a much shorter hike. It's a more leisurely hike. Probably the only negative of doing the upper, shortening the hike, is the parking lot is small and gets full pretty quick. If you try to come on a popular day in the afternoon, you probably won't get a spot. The other part is the road itself, in my opinion, is a bit sketch. Don't think they've improved it, but I've done it twice in the past, and it's potholy and rooted, and it's right at that red line where I know I could probably make it just fine. And you know, I did it twice without incident, but it's also right at that spot where you can hear your car like making sounds it doesn't normally make, and they're kind of breaky sounds, if that makes sense. And you're kind of like, oh, my poor car, am I damaging my car? Like, you don't really know if you've damaged your car because it's making these horrible sounds. And so I'd always wanted to do the full version, so I decided, you know what, today is the day. I'm going to give my car a reprieve, and I'm just going to do the long version. I definitely recommend it once, at least as a bucket list item. I mean, up 3,400 feet, coming up 4.9 miles is no joke. Like, you gotta be able to do that. That's kind of advanced level. The average person, to be honest, probably can't do that. A lot of people just get wrecked from the normal Black Butte, which is 1,600 feet. That wrecks most people, and from the bottom is over twice as long. So, I mean, that's in the advanced range. Like, if you have any doubt if you can do it, you probably can't do it, keeping it real, because you don't want to get yourself in a dangerous situation. You want to take something fun and make it scary. Being overly ambitious. Today is June 7th, 2022. Snow melted, made this accessible maybe 3rd week of May, so 2 weeks ago. No mosquitoes, no water up here, so that's good. Particularly in the Cascades, because this is kind of a mosquito-rific area, the lakes, and it's kind of the peak mosquito season, so it's nice to have a trail hike with no mosquito concern. Ooh, look at there, it's Mount Washington. So we get some great views of 3-fingered jack. When I started, it was in the 40s, weather-wise, probably low 40s. Right now, it's probably in the high 50s or low 60s. Definitely feeling it more. I brought 2 sugar-free Powerades, which I have consumed, and I was fine with that. I think I had enough hydration to get back, but a very sweet couple Canadian people offered me some water and insisted I take it. So I was very blown away by their kindness and generosity. So a couple people from Ontario, Canada, here on an RV trip to Oregon and Washington for 6 weeks. If you, in the small chance you ever happen to see this, thank you for the water. Very kind of you. One of the cool things about this trail is it's got all these informational placards. And we've got one right here. Quaking aspen. There's a little grove of quaking aspen. Cool. Learning about horticulture, about how to recognize various trees, bushes, and brushry. That was fun. And we are getting away from the ridge line. There's a ridge line that feels pretty safe overall, I gotta say. It's not like a sheer cliff situation, and you gotta be careful and watch your step, but it's not like super sketch. My super sketch radar did not get it triggered. Here's a common snowberry, in case you were having a feeling that you would not be able to go to bed tonight unless you knew what the common snowberry was. I have assuaged your concerns. So yeah, the ridge line is okay. Like, it's definitely a ridge line and you gotta have sure footing, but it's not like sketch. I'm not a fan of the mountain ridge line hikes. In fact, a lot of times I weed them out from my, filter from some of the hikes I'll even do. If it's one of these where you're right on the edge of a cliff and one wrong step and you go down 1,000 feet, that's not fun to me. Like, I want to enjoy, I want to have fun, I want to relax. And that triggers, I don't know about you, but that triggers my fight or flight. Like, I get a little freaked out. I do have a little bit of fear of heights. So if it's one of these where you got, well, the trail is 2 feet long and there's a sheer cliff to your death, to your left, it's like, well, I think I'll pass on that. So I do have a pretty honed trigger on what is going to trigger my kind of a fear of heights fight or flight situation, like where it goes from fun to dangerous. And I include that in my filter of how I pick my hikes. There's only a handful of hikes that I've decided not to do that I would otherwise do, only because I'm concerned about that aspect of it. So that's a long way of explaining this is not one of those hikes. I hike on the ridge and I never feel like I'm in a sketch situation. It never triggers my fear of heights or anything. It feels like a well-graded, well-grooved, well-spaced trail with a good amount of brushery. And so even if you have a little bit of fear of heights, I probably wouldn't be afraid of this one, but it's my humble opinion. Everything's a matter of severity. So we've gotten off the main ridge line and we're going to be turning, this whole trail will be dog-legging left, use a golf term, and then it'll be a straight shot back to the upper trailhead. For most people that would be the end of the hike, but for me, still got another 3 miles to the lower trailhead, so that will be the road less taken. Descending 3 more miles, 1,800 feet back to our trailhead. We already descended to 1,600 feet. We got another 1,800 feet. Ooh, you can see a little bit of our friend Three Finger Jack through those grove of pines straight ahead. Hiking through the beautiful Ponderosa pine-laden Deschutes National Forest. Beautiful area. Vast majority of the people park at the upper trailhead and do the 3.8 mile, 1,600 foot. I opted to do the 9.8, 3,400 foot because that's just the kind of hairpin I am. So now we are in the final leg. You can kind of break this into 4 legs. You go up 3 miles and 1,800 feet. Then you go up 1.9 miles and 1,600 feet. So that's 3,400 feet. Then you go down. I knew this was also going to be pretty exhausting. Kind of my highest elevation hike of the year so far, kind of in that spring, summer season. I did a lot of river hikes over the spring, but those are more flat and longer distance. Elevation to me is always more exhausting than length of a hike. I would much rather do a 15-mile hike that's only 500 feet elevation gain than like a 7-mile hike that's 3,000 foot elevation gain. That's gonna be way harder. So your elevation gain is really where you burn all your energy and lose your stamina. That's really where you get exhausted. The length of the hike is less meaningful, in my humble opinion, if you're an avid wilderness adventurer. So we're in the final section, descending through Deschutes National Forest in central Oregon. I say I was pretty impressed by how awesome the Black Butte overlook area was. Particularly, they had this one viewpoint area, very well designed. It was like a stained wooden deck. They had 9 placards for the 9 mountains you can see from that one spot with their elevations and stuff. It was world class, pretty well done. Looks newer. And I was pretty impressed by it. I think that punctuates the impressiveness of that spot. We also bear in mind that I did the harder route on this trail. If you want to get up there and see that, you do not have to go 9.8 miles and 3,400 feet. In fact, very few people do. This is the road not taken. This is the long route from the lower trailhead, the original historic Black Butte Trail. You can go to the newer upper trailhead, which cuts it significantly over half. Instead of 9.8, it's 3.8. And instead of 3,400, it's 1,600. So sort of less than half the length, less than half the elevation gain. Elevation gain kind of being more meaningful of those two. So I've done the upper twice in the past. It's my 3rd time here, and I decided to do the long version. My only grievance with the upper is I think the road is pretty sketch. It's got a lot of potholes and ruts, and it's right on that borderline where most, like I got a mid-size SUV, most cars can make it okay, but it's just your car's rattling and you're going through some weird sections, and the little part of you that's like, this could damage my car. Probably won't, but it could. So you got that, and then you also have a small parking lot at the top. So there have been many reports of people braving that horrible road, getting up to the top and finding out there's no parking. So for those 2 reasons, it's a little bit of a crapshoot going up to the upper one. So I figured, you know what, I had a bucket list. I've always wanted to do the full proper trail from the lower historic Black Butte Trailhead. And want to give a reprieve for my car, because that trailhead has virtually no danger. Doesn't have a sketchy road. You just basically turn off the highway, go down a red forest road, and there's just a little roundabout area, and you just park on the side. So you can save your car by going to the lower, but you over double the difficulty of the hike. So just like everything in life, it's trade-offs. And I'd always wanted to do this as a bucket list item, get the full experience. I would say, of course, the upper half is the better half, because that's the vista views of the 9 mountains, and it's kind of where your ridge line and it breaks off, and it's more pretty up there. So this is more of just classic Deschutes National Forest. It's pretty. I guess it's a judgment call if the juice is worth the squeeze. Like over doubling the elevation gain and well over doubling the length. I wouldn't say this bottom half is like epic. I wouldn't say it's like, oh my gosh, the bottom half is so beautiful, you have to see it. Like it's a beautiful forest, it's a nice forest, it's a pleasant hike. But there's a lot of other hikes in the area with this quality that don't require this elevation gain. So if you're training, so that's a good way to look at it. If let's say you have some grand designs for some alpine hikes later in summer, like August, September, and I hope you do, because that's how I roll too. Those are my favorite hikes. So if you have some grand designs on some epic hikes, you kind of are in training mode, trying to beast mode yourself to be ready for it, then this might be a pretty high quality training run. Come up here and do your 3,400 feet and 4.9 miles up. If you can do that, that pretty much means you could do almost all of the alpine mountain hikes in the Central Oregon area, because this is frankly a little steeper than those are. Some of those are also 3,000 feet, but it's spaced over 8-10 miles, so it's less of an incline, so it's actually easier. So I'd say if you can come and throw down this historical 9.8 mile, 3,400 foot hike, if you can throw this down, then you're pretty much ready for any of the alpine hikes in the Central Oregon area. So as either a training run or as just a one-time bucket list, because you want to be able to say you did it and experience it, then for those 2 reasons, I would do this trail I'm trying to finish up on. Still have a bit, but making good progress. But if it's just for the beauty of this lower forest, I probably wouldn't do it. I'd also caution you, if you don't know your capabilities, not to bite off more than you can chew. Enthusiasm and bravado are good, but you don't want to get yourself in a dangerous situation. So if you've never been here before, I would probably recommend doing the upper trailhead first. Make sure you can conquer that.